paints a bleak picture of employment in South Africa. I am Ondalambana for SAFM News headlines at 1:30.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel, Rosabelle, and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as drive light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and stories that shape the continent. Join us as we celebrate African pride, unity, and progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
One day now, one day now, one day now, one day now. La ilaha illallah, formoso levanta. La ilaha illallah, formoso levanta. Niña te jombala, sayana mumeke. Na banda kafilaho, bitu bitu yela. Na banda kafilaho, bitu bitu yela. La ilaha illallah, formoso levanta. Niña te jombala, sayana
It is the sounds of Ismail Lowe coming through. That song, Nafanta, is the name of the song. A great South African giant and a wonderful treasure of the continent. Beautiful way to kick off the music. We thought, because it is Africa Month, let us just, take ourselves on a little journey to the rest of the continent, and it brought us to Senegal, of course, and hopefully our second offering as well will be much aligned to the theme of the month. Ismail Lowe coming through with Nafanta. We've got so much on the agenda today by way of the show's conversations. Lots coming up. We are talking and reflecting on the latest South African unemployment stats that have come out. As I'm sure you saw in the briefing this morning by Stats SA, South Africa's unemployment rate has risen to 32.9% in the first quarter. And we're going to be talking the unemployed, unseen and unheard with Africa Takuna that are confronting the mental health toll on South Africa's youth. And of course, a lot of that brought on by the fact that the majority of those unemployed in the country are South African youth, and it does bring some mental strain along with it. Africa Rising's music conference is returning to Constitution Hill. Come the 22nd, we'll be catching up with the folks there just to find out what we can look forward to. And we've got some more by way of stages, pages, screens, and more today. And then on the other side of 2 o'clock, because it is Tuesday, and we are talking all things health and wellness. So Sunday is World Hypertension Day, and we're going to be looking at what is the role of diet in managing hypertension. That's coming up on the other side of 2 o'clock. Our lines are open as per usual. You can WhatsApp us on 061-410-4107. That's our WhatsApp line. And 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on. We're also on social media at Bridget Masinga on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find me there as well as at SAFM Radio across all the social media networks. Hashtag The Full Circle. Let's take a quick pause. We'll be right back.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
This year, our entire continent will gather. People from different places united by a common goal. To discover, to connect, and to grow. The world will get to see our vision. The vast potential that lies within an unlimited Africa. With the objective of creating market access to our vast array of leisure tourism products. Join us from 12 to 15 May at the Durban ICC for this unforgettable experience. South Africa awaits. Come find your joy. Africa's Travel Indaba is proudly brought to you by South African Tourism.
We all have dreams. Some people dream to be astronauts, while others want to yell, Vimba! As they chase that elusive shoplifter sprinting out and into Diamond Walk. Others might look at a broomstick and think to themselves that witchcraft might be the way to go. The possibilities are endless. But for Hollywood stars Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, their dreams is to make it big in the English football leagues. Tune into Welcome to Wrexham as the duo aim to turn Wrexham AFC into an underdog story that the world can root for, bringing hope and change to the community. Welcome to Wrexham, Saturdays at 3 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
So the country's unemployment rate statistics have come out once again for the first quarter, and unfortunately, it reflects yet again a rise in those numbers in the first quarter of 2025. Jumping to 32.9%, which is a 1% rise from the final quarter of last year. And today we thought we'd catch up with Nelly Zembe, who's the Planning, Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Manager at Africa Cocoon, and have a conversation around unemployment, the unseen and unheard challenges and burdens thereof. And Africa Cocoon is confronting the mental health toll that this has on South Africa's youth, because there's more to youth unemployment than just not having a job. There's more to it than what meets the eye. Good afternoon to you, Nelly. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Bridget. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the time. Much appreciated. And that's the crux of the matter, is that there's more to this unemployment crisis than just not having a job. There's psychological and emotional ramifications.
Absolutely. And more we're starting to see that with the young people. The results are starting to show that it's not just about not having a job. We are seeing a lot of cases of depression and anxiety, lots of reports of suicide ideation, and the links between unemployment and this are undeniable, as most research is now showing.
And the unfortunate part is, it seems as though we are not getting a handle on the situation, because when you look at the data, it consistently fluctuates, in the region of 1% up, 1% down, meaning that even when there is hope, as was left off in the final quarter of last year, with that number dropping to 31.9%, over 132,000 young people having secured work then. You fast forward 3 months later and it reflects that it was just simply short-term unsustainable work. And that in itself breeds a cycle of instability in somebody looking for a source of income in order to stabilize and sustain their lives.
Absolutely. And what it's doing now is it's forcing us to look at, strategies towards employment differently. That it's no longer just about getting into the job. We need to be looking into what makes a young person stay in a job. And most of that is actually at a social level. It's not just about the productivity that a young person gets, but what happens to their entire environment, right? It's a socio-ecological issue that we can't separate the social from the economic anymore. We need to look into what's causing it holistically, and how do we also sustain the few jobs that we are able to get for young people, and the ones that young people are getting into, short-term as they might be, but how do we ensure sustainability, not just for the individual, but for everybody else around them as well. And that speaks directly to mental health.
So with nearly 45.5%, if I'm correct, of the country's age 15 to 34, not in education, not in employment, not in training, this is perhaps our most urgent issue at the moment.
Yes, and this is where Africa Cocoon is coming in. We're coming in with not just skills development, it's not just education that we're providing. We are recognizing right at the entry level, at the post-school entry level, that young people require soft skills, and so we're equipping them with soft skills first, and then the hard skills that are critical in the South African economy. But then we're also placing them in jobs that they can get that really vital work experience that most young people are lacking, to just get the foot into most stores. But most importantly for the subject that we're talking about today is that we are recognizing the bed on which all of this is resting, is that the individual themselves still need social support services. And so what really differentiates us is that we're not just a skills development program. We are almost equipping the young person with so many resources and facilities and mechanisms for them to be able to ensure that they're well. So we're almost obsessed with wellness. That we want to make sure that the young person that we're putting in front of potential employers is not just another candidate, but a person who's ready and able to actually show up and to go above and beyond. a lot of times young people aren't able to do this because of social issues that they're experiencing that they haven't had an opportunity to address. And so our social workers providing counseling both at an individual and family level, programs also equipping young people with skills. The soft skills element speaks into emotional development, professional development, all of that, and help-seeking behavior. I mean, one of the sad statistics that we have is how low help-seeking behavior is amongst young people. When it comes to skills, it's easier for them to ask for help, but issues that are unseen, when you're starting to talk about emotions, cognitive wellness, when you're starting to talk about symptoms of depression and anxiety, help-seeking behavior is so low, and so we almost want to take away the stigma of talking about mental health and make it acceptable for people to seek help. Because the minute they know they're not alone, it's not an isolated thing that they're feeling. It also makes the environment safer for them to show up for the learning and for the skills development that we want to do with them.
And in fact, you highlight as Africa Cocoon that only around 55% of young people that you work with have actually admitted that they would openly seek some kind of assistance and support around depression and anxiety. And it's unfortunate. Only 55%.
Yeah, and so this is our baseline, right? This is when we receive young people, we are finding this is the reality, that it's quite a hidden topic. Everybody knows that, people are not speaking openly about depression and anxiety. And so part of what the program is doing is making those links and those connections so they understand you're not a separate person who's experiencing these symptoms. It's still the same person that is supposed to be showing up for all the learning and all the development. And how do you make sure that those connections are healthier? How do you make sure that all of those connections are addressed where you need them addressed? Because sometimes it's not a lack of skills development, it's that the young person is unable to show up for the learning that you want to do with them. So we are investigating a lack of skills on so many different levels to make sure that we're not missing young people that deserve and are ready for opportunities that we can actually extend to them.
And when we talk mental health, amongst young people who are actively seeking work, I can't help but wonder also just the anxiety that must arise from being in that cycle of actively job hunting, the rejection, the lack of response, all of that speaks to weighing someone's down, and it speaks to, just chipping away at someone's sense of self-worth and identity.
And that's exactly it, Bridget, that it's a viciously reinforcing cycle, that it almost takes an external intervention to break and to plug in a different message for the young people to believe something different, because once they're in that loop, it becomes very difficult to break out of. And so interventions that are cognizant of everything else that is happening around unemployment, beyond just the unemployment, are very critical at this time. That we're almost needing to be the cycle breaker, right? So you need interventions that are savvy in that way, that are equipped with the right resources, the right professional people who can plug in with their expertise correctly. Because also sometimes you can do more harm than good when you plug in at the wrong time and in the wrong way. And so we're also really valuing people who plug in with the right expertise in the right way at the right time with these young people.
Do you think we understand just how interconnected mental health is as a foundational part of employability?
Not enough. I think more and more people are starting to speak about it, but it's not translating enough into the different interventions. And so there's definitely room for talking about it more, for raising awareness, and almost shifting the face of advocacy in the space of unemployment to emphasize these connections between mental health and unemployment.
Someone out there, Nelly, can say, we can have all the conversations that we want to have around the mental health aspects of unemployment, but if we can't get the country back to a place where it was pre-94, for instance, 20% probably around there unemployment, then what good is it to have young people that are mentally and psychologically prepared and healthy and checked in when there is no opportunity for them to harness or exploit?
And that's an ongoing debate, especially when you separate the two schools of thought. You've got people who are arguing for the social first, and you've got people who are arguing for, the economic empowerment first. But we're coming in and saying you can't separate the two. These are parallel interventions that we have to go about at the same time, almost at the same pace. The social is going to affect the extent to which we can empower young people economically and vice versa, rightfully. So there is no one angle that is more important or should take precedent over the other. But if we are going to have sustainable economic development, especially youth development, from an economic perspective, it has to be married with the social aspect of it. And the social has to also be accompanied by the economic opportunities, because what's the point of having healthy young people who don't have jobs and who don't have sources of income? And so both social development and economic development have to walk the journey together.
Absolutely. Nelly Zembe, thank you so much for the time. She is the Planning, Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning Manager at Africa Cocoon. Just coming at you with this conversation around South Africa's unemployment rate from a different perspective and understanding the psychological aspect. That is what I wanted to say. Psychological aspect of what it takes for young people out there to go out into, this environment and try to secure themselves a job, and being stuck in that perpetual cycle of anticipation, rejection, going back to the beginning again, and still trying to hold on to some hope that something will come along. Obviously, this will continue to be unpacked throughout the course of the day, and I get the feeling that Ashraf and them are going to drill a little bit closer as well in as far as those numbers are concerned that were shared this morning. It's just gone 1:30. It's time for us to catch up with the headline news.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines on SAFM, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. The NPA in the Eastern Cape has confirmed that Pastor Timothy Omotoso has been released. Omotoso appeared in the East London Regional Court on charges related to the Contravention of Immigration Act following his arrest on Saturday in East London. Eskom has announced that it will be implementing Stage 2 power cuts from 4 p.m. this afternoon until 10 p.m. on Thursday evening. Analysts say the latest unemployment figure, which increased by 1 percentage point to 32.9%, paints a bleak picture of employment in South Africa. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, it's just going to help.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
It's just going to 1:30 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga on SAFM, having the conversations that lead the nation. Speaking of, we are now going to tap into something a little bit different, and we're looking at the Africa Rising Music Conference that's returning to Con Hill on the 22nd and 23rd of May. Rihanna Pillay, the General Manager at Mint Digital Services, joins us now. They're one of the stakeholders for this year's conference. How are you doing this afternoon?
Hi, Bridget. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. All right. So Africa Rising, those who actually are not familiar with the Africa Rising Music Conference, maybe a little bit of context.
So Africa Rising Music Conference is about bringing people together in the continent and people from around the world as well. We have different stakeholders from around the world that come together, and we work with the creatives. We talk about what's happening in the industry, how we can help people. It's one of the most creative industry conferences that everyone should attend.
Let's look at, drill down a little bit on that in terms of just the skills and the value that is shared during the conference. Talk to us a little bit about that, and also how those can be harnessed to tap into and build at the same time some kind of sustainable career within the music business.
Okay. In the music business, can you repeat that? I had something going on my phone and I couldn't even hear you properly.
No, I was saying
apologies.
by way of skills and the value that one can get from the Africa Rising Music Conference. Let's unpack a little bit of that, especially if someone is looking to get into the music business and build a sustainable career.
Okay, so firstly, I think the most important one is adaptability. The music industry is always changing, and there's new things coming in, old things going out. So in order to be in this business, you need to be adaptable, willing to change, also operational discipline, so getting things right in all areas of the business. Also you need to learn how to build trust and consistency over time. And also the business, for me, is a people's first leadership business, because I believe when you invest in your team, you build a culture that performs and grows together. Integrity, I think, takes a major part of the business, because you need to be transparent, fair, dependable. So integrity is one of the biggest things that I personally hold.
Yeah.
Communication. I think communication, because there's so much that we do that involves connecting different people, roles, and regions. And listening and speaking with clarity is like one of the biggest tools that you would need. So, I think that will help somebody stay grounded in the industry.
I know that you've got some background in various departments, right, that are offline from the sort of front of mic, front of camera departments, departments like HR, finance, for instance. A lot of young folks never really consider the opportunity that lies, in the business of entertainment. What would you advise by way of maybe looking and exploiting some of the opportunities there, and what those opportunities might be?
Okay, so I think there's great opportunities for new talent across the HR and finance and royalties department in the industry. Like in royalties, there's a real need for people who understand both data and music rights, and those who can work with systems and also think critically about how money flows back to creatives. So if you have that kind of mindset, you can have an opportunity in that part of the business. Also, the finance opportunities lies in bridging the traditional accounting with the music-specific platforms, and also people who can connect financial insight with creative industries are incredibly valuable. And looking at the HR part, well, with remote teams and international integration, we need HR professionals who are agile people. They need to be people-focused and ready to build inclusive and high-performing environments. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in the industry for this. And looking at the people that we bring into the industry, if you have a thought of being in the industry, just kind of look into the courses that you can go into that teaches you on music business.
Yeah. And of course, we don't, it's Africa Month, and this is the Africa Rising Music Conference, so we don't work in isolation. And a lot of times, I don't know if you'd agree, it's also about casting your eye beyond South African borders and see where your talents could be, maximized in other territories, or your skills perhaps could be of bigger value in other territories for you to be able to exploit a career opportunity.
Yes.
You'd agree?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay. So by way of just the final detail, so the Africa Music Rising Conference is going to be at Con Hill, 22nd to 23rd. Young people who listen to the show mostly are the ones who are going to be interested in attending this. Would you be able to give us maybe RSVP information? Where do they go in order to just have a look at everything that's being offered, and reserving and RSVPing for their spot?
Okay, so I think they need to log on to the Africa Music Rising Conference website, and we have tickets there. We have VIP tickets. The VIP tickets also gives you access to VIP networking lounge, gives you goodie bags, and also gives you access to all the insights of the whole conference. And then we have normal tickets that are free tickets that will just give you access to the conference of the various talks that are going to be going on the show. So I think once they log on to the website, Africa Rising Music Conference website, they'll have all the information there. We have all the people that are going to be taking us through the 2 days of the conference, and yeah, it's going to be exciting, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Rihanna Pillay, thank you so much for the time. And Rihanna is one of the stakeholders at this year's Africa Music Rising Conference. We're going to take a quick pause. We'll be back on the other side.
Catch SAFTA award-winning cooking reality show The Tastemaster SA from Tuesday the 13th of May at 7:30. Watch as 10 talented contestants take on delicious challenges to impress celebrity chef Zola Nene, along with special guest judges. Don't miss the season premiere, a heartfelt tribute to the incredible moms who inspire us all. That's Tuesday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. The Tastemaster SA, only on SABC2.
There and everywhere. SAFM 106.2 FM in Zanin. Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
All right, Dr. Leanne Lutz joins us now, dance lecturer in the Drama and Performance Studies program at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, the Durban campus. The Jomba, it's a female-forward dance residency 2025, is being hosted by the University of KwaZulu-Natal Center for Creative Arts, and they're offering a residency for 6 Durban KZN female dancers aged between 18 and 30. How are you doing this afternoon, Dr. Leanne?
Very well, and thanks so much for having us on your show.
It's only a pleasure, only a pleasure. All right, before we even get into the residency in itself, let's look at just the world of dance holistically in the country. From time to time, we talk to, various creatives. And there's been this recurring theme, which has been a little bit unfortunate, where a lot of folks have reiterated the fact that, dance hasn't really been given much of a PR platform by way of dance festivals and dance engagements, like we used to have the Dance Umbrella, a few years ago in quite a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think, sorry, excuse me, I think arts are generally in a situation of always of difficulty. We're always the kind of last people to get funding. And it's quite hard to sustain yourself as an artist. Most of us have got all sorts of side hustles as well. But I think dance is also a kind of, I don't know if I can use the phrase, a bit of a Cinderella, because sometimes it's not always easy, and sometimes artists are doing strange things. But for me, it's such a beautiful art form. It's a political art form. It's a social art form. It's a cultural art form, and it is such a truthful art form because our bodies don't lie. And so, it's really great to have these spaces to talk about it and to see things growing. And yeah, I mean, we've lost a lot of platforms for dance, and that's why for me, Jomba is a very sacred space. Because the festival is turning 27, and it is actually the longest surviving contemporary dance festival on the African continent. So we're holding close, and we're hoping that, with all these beautiful projects and programs that we're running, that it continues to be this space that really loves, supports, and nurtures young dancers.
I mean, how have you kept sort of that momentum alive for 27 years, given everything that we've just sort of put into context about, the lack of resource, lack of funding, lack of support, and most times overlooked, when it comes to arts and culture?
I think, this is the thing about South Africa, is that despite everything, there is so much passion and goodwill. And I know that the artists who come through Jomba, sometimes, there are years when we've had very little money, and we've said to artists, we can only pay you a tiny little honorarium. Do you still want? And artists have said, yes, we'll come. And I think for me, that's the thing that wakes me up every morning and continues to do this work, is understanding this deep this deep desire that we have as a nation to tell stories. And dance is about storytelling on the body, and I think it's a kind of passion. And of course, I work with a fantastic Dr. Ishmael Muhammad, who is just remarkable in finding little bits of money here and there. And so somehow we just managed to survive and keep going, but it's a passion project, totally.
Yeah. And the festival in itself, the vision for the festival is to nurture and support and also grow contemporary dance. Talk to us about, what that looks like over the festival period, and of course, most importantly, the residency call out that you've put out there.
Yes. So the festival's got many layers, and of course it's a performance festival where people can come and see fantastic, companies from all over South Africa and from some of our, colleagues all over the world. But our kind of core work is that we really want to continue to support and grow and nurture, as you said, local dancers. And so we've been very lucky to get a little bit of funding this year to run one very specific residency, and that's to promote and nurture and support young women dancers. So it's called the Jomba Female Forward Program, and we're looking for 6 young women between the ages of 18 and 30 who have some dance training, and we're not even saying in what style or what skills, but it's not a beginner's program, so we're wanting people with some skills. And the residency is aiming not only to give them classes and support them as artists, but also there's going to be industry discussions, meeting the artists at the festival, looking at what it means to write a CV, what does it mean to run your social media campaign. So it's a kind of holistic support and nurture of 6 wonderful young women who will be selected for the program.
And I mean, listen, 6 in itself, I'm sure a lot of young women are going to be going, why are you capping it at 6?
Well, I hope so. I hope look, the residency is being offered free of charge. There's no cost to the residents, those who make it. It's a very, I think it's very prestigious to get it, but there is a small little honorarium that each person is given to cover their transport and their lunch every day. But they will be given a free pass to the festival. And I mean, also just to mention that the woman running the residency is a long-time friend of our festival, which is the wonderful Gabby Saranufi, who's based in both Madagascar and South Africa. And she will be running the practical training and teaching, but we'll have all sorts of kind of wonderful guests, media people from the festival who will come in and speak and nurture and guide. So I think it's something, it's only a week.
Yeah.
People who want to do the residency, they have to send in an application, and the due date is the 30th of May, so it's quite soon. And then the selection will happen on the kind of applications, and then we'll do a class. So people will get a call back to come and do a physical class, and then terrible job to choose 6. I wish there was funding for many more, but I'm really hoping that the young women of our province come out in their numbers.
Yeah, and I think this is an incredible initiative as well, because it is deliberately focused on harnessing more female dancers. I didn't realize that locally we have less female dancers that are working professionally.
It's so interesting because whenever we travel abroad or in our continent, people kind of can't believe how many men are dancing in South Africa. But I think there are specific reasons that women drop out. I mean, we run all sorts of programs, and then, life's challenges, the kind of gender challenges of women and motherhood and, all that stuff sort of kick in, and it's often women who drop out more than men. So this is really us trying to nurture that thing of stay in the industry. We need you, and you're valuable, and we want your voices,
Absolutely, Doc. I mean, I completely get the challenges that you speak of. I think they resonate in so many sectors for women, and just last week we were talking around women, a survey that came out that indicates women seeking more support, more flexibility, sort of sectors to recognize that we go through different social development stages that require us to be able to dip in and out of our respective careers and not feel as though we're compromising something. So I can imagine how that is magnified in the world of dance that is demanding on its own. So for those who want to be a part of the potentially a part of the residency, of course, you did say applications close on the 30th of May. Will they need to submit some kind of audition tape, and how many minutes must that be?
Yes, no, thank you for that, and absolutely. So if anyone listening wants to, all they have to do is go to the Jomba website, and that's they just type in Jomba, and the website will come up. And there's a big page on the opening homepage. It's got a whole lot of information on the residency. And basically you have to submit a particular kind of CV with all your contact details. And then once we get the CVs on the 30th, we'll make a quick selection of those who will then be called to the audition class. Awesome. So it's not an onerous process to apply. It's literally, I think, a 2-page CV, very specific details required, but not difficult to do at all, and all the information is on the Jomba website.
Wonderful. Dr. Leanne Lutz, thank you so much for the time. And Dr. Leanne is a dance lecturer in the Drama and Performance Studies program at the University of KZN. www.jomba.ukzn.ac.za is where you can go if you're a female dancer with some previous training in any style, age between 18 and 30. This 7-day residency could be a great opportunity for you. A quick one just to catch our breath, and then we come back, and we're calling all emerging artists. Entries are now open for the 2025 Sasol New Signatures Visual Arts Competition.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
You and I have a country to build, difficult conversations to have, solutions to find, and stories to tell. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 p.m. to midnight.
Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle.
It's just gone 10 to 2 o'clock, and we are catching up with Kate Tablanche, who's the curator of the Sasol Art Collection and judge and mentor for the, of course, the Sasol New Signatures Visual Arts Competition. And entries are open for the 2025 cohort. Good afternoon to you, Kate. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Bridget. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. I am so good. Are you well?
I'm fabulous. So,
wonderful.
One of the most prestigious art competitions to come out of the country. Give our listeners a bit of background around the New Signatures competition.
Yes, it is. It is one of the most prestigious, I think, and also one of the longest running art competitions in the country. We at Sasol have been sponsoring it for over 30 years. I think we're going on 35 now. And the competition has been running for around about 50 years already. Sure. So it's really, yes, it's part of South African history. And many artists have actually been put on the map because of Sasol New Signatures. So, yes, it has a wonderful history.
Yeah. In fact, I think one of these days my little show must come have a squiz at some of your art collection that you've gathered up here, your corporate art collection. But 35 years is a long, healthy run. And when you speak about longevity in a space like this, what does that speak to? And perhaps even a moment to just highlight some of the significant the significant creatives who've come out of this particular competition over the last 3 decades.
Yes, I think it does actually speak a lot about Sasol's commitment to emerging artists. To be sponsoring a competition like this for so many years. And over the years, the competition has also evolved. And every single year, we sit down when we plan. We want to maybe just rethink our strategy and just have a look and see how else we can support our emerging artists. And that is really actually what we want to do, is just to provide a platform for them to showcase their works. And like you said, over the years, there have been so many artists that have been associated with the competition. Gosh, there are so many, and it feels wrong to sort of like highlight some of them. But, we do have Candice Bright, Mohammed Issa King. I think they're probably a few of the most famous ones, Lebogang Kanye. So many. And even if you look at the catalogs, if you're browsing through those, you'll find a lot of names that are very familiar. And even though they might not have won, they did actually enter the competition. They had a bit of a kickstart through the competition.
Yeah. The importance, by the way, of competitions like this for artists to be involved in, whether one wins or lose, just what does that do for an artist's trajectory? What does that do, for an artist who's trying to establish themselves? And what a lot of people don't understand is a very competitive market, albeit niche, still, people clamoring to just find sustainability within the space.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think the big thing is, as a young emerging artist, the big challenge is really to find a space where you can show people what you're about and showcase your art. And those kind of opportunities are really actually quite limited. You can't just walk up to a gallery and say, "Hey, here I am, and this is my art." So how do you actually share your art with a broader public? And I think that is actually where competitions really can be quite useful for artists. We often have members from the art-loving public, collectors, galleries that come to the exhibition, and they sort of like look through the artists and make a note of certain names and things, and maybe follow up on them. So I think it is actually far more than just the winning and the prize money.
Yeah.
It is an incredible opportunity to showcase your work. And I think, also, just being in the catalogue, obviously also that translates into a entry in your CV, which is a very important thing, when it comes to, building up your CV. People look at those kind of things, So all round, I think it's just, it's something to think about when you're wanting to promote your career, take it to the next level.
Yeah. So the competition, it's open for artists who have not yet held a solo exhibition. So in the truest sense, we are talking here, true emerging artists.
Yes, we are. So if you've had a solo exhibition that was formed part of your studies, if you were at university, that wouldn't count. But yes, we are looking at emerging artists, and that's what we are wanting to. Those are the people that we're wanting to support.
Yeah. Just a rundown of the criteria that is expected by, of course, the panel of judges for any entrance.
Okay, Doug. So what we are looking for is, we're obviously looking for work that is original and creative. It must have definitely a certain level of technical expertise. And we also look at the conceptual development and the depth, and also the presentation. So those are like sort of the criteria that we look at when we judge the works.
100,000 rand is on the table for the overall winner, which is a wonderful cash prize, I think, for any young artist. Definitely would go in handy for the work.
Yes, it is, but they do actually have to use that money towards their solo exhibition. So part of their prize is that they receive the opportunity to have a solo exhibition at the Pretoria Art Museum in the following year. And obviously the money is there to help them put together that solo exhibition. Wonderful. So hopefully if they work well with it, there might be a bit of spare cash.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because we know the plight of artists, right? So,
Yes, and
yes.
art materials, oh my goodness, they are so expensive.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the overall winner receives that 100,000 that must go towards presenting their solo exhibition, and of course the Cecil New Signatures competition is in partnership with the Pretoria Art Museum. By way of closing date, you'd be surprised how many artists stop us or DM me and say that conversation that you had, even though the podcast is available. But by way of closing date, when is closing date for this?
Okay, so that's very, very important. So the submission dates are on the 10th and the 11th of June this year.
Okay.
So those are the only 2 dates that you can submit. And we do have 8 different submission points around the country. So the best is just to go to the Cecil New Signatures website and download the enter form. All the details are there. But the most important dates, 10 and 11th of June this year.
Awesome.
Those are when we're accepting the submissions.
Awesome stuff. Kate Blanche, thank you so much for the time. And Kate is the curator of the Cecil Art Collection, the corporate collection, then, as well as a judge and mentor for the New Signatures competition that is held annually, and it's open to young South African artists age 18 and older who've not yet held a solo exhibition. This, of course, excludes you having had a exhibition, by way of campus and when you were still studying. We're talking a solo professional exhibition post-graduation. So if you fall into that category, this could be for you. 10th, 11th of June is when you can submit, and they actually have physical submission points where you can drop off your work physically. So if you log on to New Signatures website, you'll be able to see where those submission points are around the country, and you can get your work in there between the 10th and the 11th of June. That's the closing date for this year's competition. All the very best of luck to you if you're a young artist or you know a young artist. This is one of those opportunities where you've got to pass and what do they call? Puff and pass. Pass it on to a young artist in the family who could need the opportunity. 2 o'clock is approaching, and of course, Andela standing by with the news.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 2. Court releases Pastor Timothy Motosho and Eskom to implement stage 2 load shedding from 4 p.m. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana, and a very good day. The NPA in the Eastern Cape has confirmed that Pastor Timothy Omotosho has been released. Omotosho appeared in the East London Regional Court on charges related to contravention of Immigration Act following his arrest on Saturday in East London. NPA spokesperson Lukolo Kyali says he was released because the Home Affairs Department did not follow correct procedures, as he was supposed to be brought to court within 48 hours, which expired at 7 a.m. on Monday. Omotosho only appeared in court at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Eskom has announced that it will be implementing stage 2 power cuts from 4 p.m. this afternoon until 10 p.m. on Thursday evening. The power utility says the decision is due to a delay in the return of generation units as well as a couple of unplanned breakdowns. Eskom spokesperson Daphne Mukwena says the setbacks have impacted their operational performance, but the system is in a significantly stronger position than in the past winters.
This decision follows the delayed return of generation units amounting to 3,120 megawatts, as well as an additional loss of 1,385 megawatts in the past 24 hours due to unplanned breakdowns. Eskom is currently emerging from an intensive maintenance cycle, which is essential for long-term reliability, but temporarily reduces system flexibility and resilience. Eskom remains firmly committed to stabilize and strengthen the system as a result of the structural improvements across the generation fleet.
Analysts say the latest unemployment figure, which increased by 1 percentage point to 32.9%, paints a bleak picture of employment in South Africa. Figures released by Stats SA show that the number of unemployed people increased by 237,000 to 8.2 million during the period under review. Meanwhile, the expanded unemployment rate increased by 1.2 percentage points to 43.1% in the first quarter of the year. Standard Bank Group Head of Macroeconomic Research, Dr. Elna Mulman, elaborates.
In the first quarter of this year, employment was only 43,000 higher than the same time last year, and these jobs were all created in the informal sector, with a rather steep decline in formal sector employment over this period.
The National Transport Department says working hours at the Driving Licence Card Agency will be extended in an attempt to reduce the printing backlog of driving licence cards. This after the department confirmed that the machine has been fixed and operations have resumed. It had been out of operation since February and led to a printing backlog of over 740,000 cards. The department spokesperson, Colleen Msibi, says the process of finding a service provider to supply new machines has been stalled due to irregularities found by the Auditor General.
There was a service provider which was appointed, but unfortunately with the Auditor General having to audit the processes that were followed, it was found that these irregularities that happened. So it is because of the audit process that took place, so a decision had to be made. As you know, the South African culture, the moment you go ahead with the appointment of the service provider under a cloud like that, then it becomes an issue. Why proceed with the appointment when you know there's an issue with the audit? So we've had to make a decision, which the minister did, to say let's go to court for a declaratory order so that the court decide whether we go ahead with that service provider or not.
In a further easing of U.S. tariffs on imports from China, President Donald Trump has slashed the tax imposed on small parcels. That's according to a statement from the White House, further de-escalating a potentially damaging trade war between the world's two largest economies. The BBC's Martin Yep reports.
The levy for low-value parcels worth less than $800 is being cut from 120% to 54% from Wednesday. International couriers such as DHL had suspended delivery of these parcels since early May because of the tariff imposed by President Trump. The duty worried both Chinese exporters as well as American consumers who have come to rely heavily on online shopping for daily items from China.
Recapping the top story, the NPA in the Eastern Cape has confirmed that Pastor Timothy Omotoso has been released. Omotoso appeared in the East London Regional Court on charges related to contravention of Immigration Act following his arrest on Saturday in East London. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News Headlines at 2:30.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
Marawai, why did you think you could change your tire when you've never even changed a light bulb successfully? Marawai, why not switch to Santam and get 24/7 roadside assistance to get you moving again? Choose the insurer with cover options that suit your needs. Call 0860 444 444 or SMS cover to 36101. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
VIP protection officers, they face legal charges including pointing a firearm, reckless and negligent driving, malicious damage to property, assault with the intent to cause grievous bodily harm, obstruction of justice, and assault by way of threat. There was so much that they faced, right? The story is now that they've been cleared of these charges by the South African Police Service. So I understand you're going to write to the Police Minister for clarity. That could well be an understatement. It sounds like you're not very happy.
it really is a very shameful moment for the South African Police Service. It's an indictment on, and I think it sends a very, very dangerous message to the public that South African Police Service members, especially those attached to elite units like Presidential Protection Services, could act with impunity and that they're above the law. So shameful to say the least, and it's critical for us to understand how on earth they could have been acquitted of the disciplinary charges against them.
Ian Cameron, chairperson of the Portfolio Committee.
This is the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. You are listening to The Full Circle.
It was a great loss to the South African music fraternity, particularly the jazz fraternity, when renowned jazz musician Musa Manzini passed at just the age of 55, leaving behind a great legacy and a great contribution to jazz. Today we're playing his Just Like Cape Town, an ode to Cape Town, a city that he called home for many, many, many years, having worked and taught, in fact, in Cape Town. It's approaching 3:15. Well, 2:15. Why am I saying 3:15? 2:15 o'clock. And it is a Tuesday. So, on Tuesdays after 2, we have a wellness and health conversation. And today's no different. We're looking at World Hypertension Day. And the theme for this year is measure your blood pressure accurately, control it, and live longer. We're catching up with Carrie Erasmus, who's a registered dietitian, because we want to look at the role of diet, perhaps, in managing hypertension. How are you doing this afternoon, Carrie?
Hi, Bridget. I'm doing so well. I'm excited for this chat.
Thank you so much for the time. Let's talk about hypertension. I think a lot of us are walking around, firstly, not knowing what our numbers are, not understanding how to even interpret them. When I say a lot of us, I mean, hand up in the air if you're watching us live streaming. I happen to be one of those people.
Yes, no, most definitely. To address that, so blood pressure or hypertension, as we know it, is the pressure that is exerted by the blood on the interior walls of the blood vessels. So when you talk about numbers, it's recorded as a systolic pressure, which of course is the top number, over the diastolic pressure, which is the bottom number. So systolic is when the heart contracts or beats, and diastolic pressure is when the heart or the heart muscle relaxes. So to define hypertension or high blood pressure, that's when your blood pressure is over 140/90 on multiple occasions. So we know that in South Africa, a blood pressure measure of 140/90 or greater is considered to be harmful and requires an immediate medical assessment.
And yet knowing just how important it is to know these numbers and to regularly monitor one's blood pressure, it is no joke that unless something else brings you to a hospital or clinic where then your blood pressure is one of the things that is assessed and taken, a lot of South Africans are unaware of what their blood pressure says. They're walking around unaware whether or not they do perhaps have some kind of problem with hypertension, like persistent problem with hypertension.
Yes, most definitely. So the thing about high blood pressure is it's often referred to as the silent killer or the silent threat, because individuals are unaware that they have it, because you experience very few symptoms from the start. I mean, in South Africa, we do have evidence that show that about only 19% and 29% of 19% of men and 29% of women are aware of that condition, meaning there are thousands of South Africans walking around not knowing that they have high blood pressure. And although you might not be experiencing symptoms right now, continuous raised blood pressure is slowly affecting your cardiovascular system and damaging your vital organs like your heart and your brain.
What could be some of the most serious long-term complications associated with hypertension, just so that we get a proper full grasp of the magnitude of this, and then we can start getting into a conversation around looking at management and solution and diet and things of that nature?
Yes, so the higher and the longer that this blood pressure is elevated, the more damage is caused. So the damage occurs over time. as you said, often without noticeable symptoms. So there's a constant strain on your body's vital organs. So think about it. Your heart has to work harder to pump blood, which then can lead to heart disease and heart failure. Your kidneys, for example, which filter waste and excess fluid, become damaged because we often see fluid build-up with hypertension, leading to kidney disease or failure in the future. Your brain, of course, relies on a steady supply of blood and oxygen, which suffer when there's a reduced blood flow from high blood pressure. So all of these organs then are damaged. Brain, for example, that causes an increased risk of stroke, cognitive decline, even dementia. So all these organs need healthy blood vessels to function, and that's why damage to blood vessels from high blood pressure can be so exhausting over time.
Yeah. Let's just take a quick pause here. It's 2:20 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga on SAFM, and then we'll come back on the other side and continue talking to Carrie, who's a registered dietitian, and we'll look at the role that diet plays when it comes to managing hypertension.
Do you want an experience of a lifetime? Where every day is filled with challenges of providing Lisa Vanderpump curated experiences while dealing with rivalries, romances, and misadventures. It's drama at Vanderpump's French Estate. Chantel, Rosabelle, and the staff can't wait to give you a front row seat to all the drama. Catch Vanderpump Villa, Saturdays on S3 at 8:30 p.m. S3 open up.
Banyana Bus Style are confident nothing will stop their winning mentality, while Richmond United ladies are highly spirited to display a first-class performance. Gauteng is up against Northern Cape. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the delight of Mzansi's women's football, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Richmond United Ladies on Sunday 18 May at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, it's just gone 2:20, and we're having a conversation around World Hypertension Day. And the theme this year is measure your blood pressure, accurately control it, and live longer. And of course, we've heard from Carrie Erasmus, who's a registered dietitian, just ideally what those numbers should be, what those numbers represent, and of course, some of the more long-term, complications that could come with uncontrolled hypertension, aka blood pressure. And we thought we'd also have a conversation around, Carrie, the role of diet when it comes to hypertension. Does diet play a role in just ensuring perhaps we keep those numbers stable, keep them below that 140 and 90?
Yes, most definitely. So behavioral choices like what you eat have a direct impact on your blood pressure. If we think about diet, just to point to salt, which is one of the major risk factors for a high blood pressure. I mean, we have research that shows, science that shows that as soon as you start to reduce your salt intake, you start to see improvements in that blood pressure, with those numbers actually going down to below the 140/90, which is considered as hypertension.
And in fact, also this week is also Salt Awareness Week. We had this conversation the other day, actually, with the professor. I think it was from Pretoria University, if I remember correctly. And they were doing some studies in communities around salt and sodium. And how reduction of that has had significant health benefits for those who participated in the surveys. A lot of times dietitians will say it's not about eliminating, because perhaps that could be difficult, but it's about maybe moderating and substituting. Would you agree?
Yes, most definitely. So for starters, when we start to reduce our salt intake, our blood pressure can come down, as I mentioned, which then of course decreases your risk for heart disease, strokes, and kidney disease. And then the key to, as you said, as to controlling that salt or sodium intake is to not kind of eliminate, but to, we've got lots of hidden sources of salt or sodium, which we don't always realize. So for the average person, it's difficult to figure out how much salt is actually contained in food. But we must remember that when we say we're trying to stay within the daily limit of salt, which is actually 5 grams or 1 level teaspoon, that includes not only the salt that we add at the table or during cooking, but also what's already added during manufacturing of certain products, especially your breads, your ultra-processed foods. Those food items often already has sodium in them, which we don't always realize.
How do we go about checking, whilst we're on the salt, how do we go about just checking in the simplest way, back of packaging? I had a dietitian try and teach me in the lamest way on this show around how to check the sugar content back of packaging per 100 mils. Yes. Should be under, I can't remember now, I think it was 5 grams or something.
So the daily recommended intake for salt is to keep it below 5 grams of salt. So as I mentioned, it's 1 level teaspoon. So how you do this is, as you said, it's so important to check the labels of the foods that we buy, because that's often where that sodium is that we don't always realize. So how you do this is you'll check the nutrition table at the back of the packaging, and what you want to look for is under the sodium row. You want to choose products that have 120 milligrams of sodium or less per 100 gram of food. So those food items are considered to be low in sodium. But such a great question, and this is exactly what the Heart and Stroke Foundation will be addressing in our webinar tomorrow, is we're going to be teaching the public how to read food labels for salt, sugar, and fat, your main contributors to unhealthy eating.
Yeah. I mean, whilst we're here, maybe a quick reminder of how to read that sugar, because I had it in my head for a couple of months and it was really good, but now I think I've lost it.
Yes, of course. So for salt, as I mentioned, 120 milligrams of sodium or less per 100 gram of food. So for food labels, you'll always check the 100 grams, because even though they list serving size, it's not, serving size can differ from product to product. So when you compare products, you always compare per 100 grams. So for sodium, that's going to be 120 milligrams. For fat, that's going to be 5 grams. Saturated fat, it's going to be 1.3. And then sugar, it's going to be, if I'm correct, it's 7. But we do have those resources on our website, and as I said, we'll be going through practical examples tomorrow in our webinar that listeners can register for.
Wonderful. What other would it be a good idea also with diet to perhaps try to increase particular food groups just to counter maybe some of that sodium salt intake?
Yes, most definitely. So as I mentioned, it's often ultra-processed foods that we have that extra sodium. So that means that opting for fresh, minimally processed, raw, whole foods are the foods to go for, because you know there won't be any added sodium, but in any case also no added fat or sugars in there as well. So the key there is always to try and go for fresh, whole foods, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, and to, of course, try and cook more meals at home. You know, when we eat at restaurants or we buy meals, we don't know and we don't have control over what is put into that food. But when we cook at home, we can take responsibility and make an intention on how we cook that meals and how we feed our bodies.
Absolutely. Carrie Erasmus, thank you so much for the time. And Carrie is a registered dietitian. And you can log on to heartfoundation.co.za if you want to find out more. Maybe this would be a good time for you also to just put in that reminder to go and get your blood pressure checked this coming weekend. I know a lot of the big pharmaceutical chains offer in-house nurses, especially in their bigger branches, where you can go and get your basics numbers done. You know, get your blood pressure taken, make sure your sugar levels are also on point. And just ensure that at the very least you know what's going on in your body, especially with these silent killers. 120 milligrams per 100 grams of sodium is what you should be looking out for in the back of packaging when you check those packagings. And 5 grams or less per 100 of sugar is what you should be looking out for there as well. It's just gone 2:30. It is time for the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side of this and we'll get into our kids programming with Kids Corner.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines, the NPA in the Eastern Cape has confirmed that Pastor Timothy Mutoso has been released. The Department of Higher Education has supported the decision to investigate possible maladministration and mismanagement of funds at the National Skills Fund. And Eskom has announced that it will be implementing Stage 2 power cuts from 4 p.m. this afternoon until 10 p.m. on Thursday evening. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.6 FM in Tshwane.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Good day, everyone. My name is Zamangoza Mayana, and today I will be talking about finishing my homework on time. When I finish my homework on time, I feel relieved and proud of myself. To stay on track, I set reminders on my phone and use a planner. I usually do my homework in the living room where I'm more comfortable and I can focus. I think it's essential to do assignments on time because it reduces stress and you get more marks. My advice to someone who forgets to set his or her reminders is prioritize your tasks and find a study buddy, like someone who can help you with setting your reminders or even studying. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys learned something new today. See you guys next time.
Good day, everyone. My name is Yolanda Mzobe. I am 11 years old. I feel very excited and happy when I finish my homework on time. What helps me remember to do my homework every day is that I check my books each and every single day when I come back from school. Yes, I do have a special place for doing my homework. What makes it well is that it will be peaceful and quiet, and I will have time to concentrate. No one will be disturbing me. I think it is important to do your assignment on time because when it's time for submitting, you might get in trouble and fail and lose marks. I will give an advice to someone who always forgets to do their homework that always check your books each and every day when you come back from school. Thank you, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Mbalenke. No, I am not one of those kids that like doing their homework last minute. Some challenges for me not getting homework done is that I forget. I am most comfortable with my brother to help me with my homework. I'd say him because he is also in school and he understands the work better.
I like doing my homework as soon as possible. Some of the reasons that I don't get my homework done are sports and culture events. The person I'm most comfortable with helping me with my homework is my father. I feel like my father explains it better and helps me understand it.
My name is Orisitsa Nemakanga. No, I do my homework earlier before it's last minute to do it. If we get to school and our homework is not done, they might give us detention and let us do our homework during detention. My mom or my aftercare teacher, because my aftercare teacher and my mom, they understand the work better than other people I have asked.
Good day, everyone. My name is Paula Zimayana. If I do homework last minute, it's definitely not going to work for me. I don't like doing that. I don't like doing it and I don't do it. If I do my homework last minute, then it's probably because I was very, very busy doing something very important. Then I would do my homework late, but certainly not last minute. Challenges when you don't do your homework are you will get in trouble and you might fall behind at school or in class. Most of the time I don't need help with my homework, but if I do, then I ask my dad, or I watch a YouTube video, ask my teacher, friends, or my brother. I ask those people because I can rely on them and I trust them. Also, it's because I feel comfortable asking them. Thank you for listening and goodbye.
Hello friends and happy Tuesday. Let me ask you, how do you feel when you finish your homework on time? Isn't it such a great feeling? Like you've climbed a little mountain and made it to the top? Finishing your work early gives you a big sense of achievement and helps you feel proud of yourself. Now, some of us have tricks that help us remember to do our homework. Maybe you write it down in a note, or maybe someone at home reminds you. Some kids even have a special place to work, a quiet spot, maybe with a table and a good light, where you can concentrate without distractions. Having your work supplies nearby also helps you stay focused and not waste time looking for pencils and books. Having a routine like doing your homework after lunch or before dinner can make it easier to stay on track. When you keep doing it the same way every day, it becomes a habit, and that's a great thing. And once it's a habit, it doesn't feel like a chore anymore. It just becomes part of your day, like brushing your teeth or making your bed. Now, why is it so important to do your homework on time? Well, it helps you remember what you learned in class. It shows your teacher that you're responsible and serious about your learning. And the best part, it gives you more free time later to play and relax because your work is already done. Plus, when you stay on top of your homework, you feel less stressed and more ready for tests and projects. If you're someone who always forgets, don't worry. You can start small. Try writing your homework down or setting a reminder, or ask someone at home to check in with you. You can even make it fun. Use stickers or colors to track your progress. Remember, homework isn't about being perfect. It's about showing effort, learning step by step, and getting better every day. Mistakes are part of learning, so don't be afraid to try. So let's all make a promise today to try our best, ask for help when we need it, and finish our homework like the superstars that we are. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and always believe in yourself. See you next time.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives. SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Ashraf Gada on SAFM.
VIP protection officers. They face legal charges including pointing a firearm, reckless and negligent driving, malicious damage to property, assault with the intent to cause grievous bodily harm, obstruction of justice, and assault by way of threat. There was so much that they faced, right? The story is now that they've been cleared of these charges by the South African Police Service. So I understand you're going to write to the Police Minister for clarity. That could well be an understatement. It sounds like you're not very happy.
It really is a very shameful moment for the South African Police Service. It's an indictment on, and I think it sends a very, very dangerous message to the public that South African Police Service members, especially those attached to elite units like Presidential Protection Services, could act with impunity and that they're above the law. So shameful to say the least, and it's critical for us to understand how on earth they could have been acquitted of the disciplinary charges against them.
Ian Cameron, chairperson of the Portfolio Committee.
This is the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. This May, SAFM celebrates Africa Month with you as we honor the legacy of the Organization of African Unity. We bring you rich conversations and the vibrant sounds of Africa. Music that moves the soul. This is SAFM. Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
Okay, Lorato, help me out. How are you doing?
Good in yourself.
I'm great, thank you. He's like, you're not going to get there. And it seems very simple, right? Because like it's only like 3 alphabets and 3 vowels.
It always goes to the accent, I
guess. It goes to the accent and the inflection.
Yeah,
okay, so that I don't offend your parents.
So it's Budibe.
Budibe.
Yeah, Budibe.
Budibe.
Close. You just need to tone it down. But it's fine.
Lorato Budibe joins us as an entrepreneur and group CEO of Rockvest and author of Entrepreneurship is Not for Everyone. Is it for you? How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good on yourself.
I'm great. Thank you. Looking very swaggy. Very swaggy. Had to look. Even all fresh sneakers and all. Like
this is my daily life.
This is your daily life.
Monday to Friday. You have to look sharp.
I
think it comes with the territory. Being in business, perception is everything.
Yes.
So always appearing and basically showing up in a good way. It's always key. I'll switch to my casual wear and stuff over the weekends, but depending on the setup or wherever that I'm going. But Monday to Friday, I'm in a suit. I'm always looking slick, I guess.
Now, young people, whilst we're here, we're going to get into the entrepreneurial part, but I think presentation, as you say, is part of the hello.
Correct.
Of being in business.
Correct.
And there was a time a few years ago, about 10 years ago, when we saw a lot of urban young CEOs, I'm thinking Russell Simmons and the likes of, who sort of re-engineered what the presentation of a CEO is. And then you saw a lot of young people sort of taking that on board and saying it's more than the aesthetic of me.
Yeah.
It's about what I'm bringing to the conversation and to the table. Yeah. Would you say, given the context of Gen Zs nowadays, that still very much is the mentality where they're disrupting from the onset, from the base of appearance?
100%. I think it depends on the industry you're in. If it's more of a corporate, formal environment and setup, you obviously have to be more on the formal side, as opposed to be on the casual side. He is true, or rather, he's basically giving things that are Gen Z related in essence. It's always about the conversations, but we live in 2 different dynamics or 2 different environments. South Africa versus the US, etc. and the likes. Chalk and cheese, right? You can walk that side into a VC company wearing your shirt or whatever the case might be, pitch and you'll still be heard, right? But on our side, it still comes down to you need to actually, how you present yourself as you walk in should set the tone.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everybody's going to look at you and say, but this guy is not serious. How do you rock up like this in this instance? I think for me, it was also quite personal. Back in the days, I used to be a hip-hop guy. Not giving away my age, but we used to be in baggy pants and everything and so forth. And I was already in business.
Yeah.
I met a guy while I was still in Pretoria at the time, and I gave him a business card. I was already that formal in terms of making sure that I have the right resources with me at any time. Gave him my business card. 3-4 months later, I meet him. I'm like, hey, you never called me. He's like, nah, dude. Immediately, I took a corner. I took your business card and chucked it away because I could not see myself working with you with the way you are dressed. I think since then, everything has changed. I had to now make sure that I always look the part. And especially when you're obviously running a business, multiple business at that, it's quite key from a presentation perspective, especially in South Africa. It becomes a different dynamic altogether. Going in your sweatpants, etc., asking for R1 million, who will help you with that?
Patrice will definitely laugh you off and say, well, love your fashion.
True.
So maybe you should talk to Dr. P.
100%.
And I think what you're saying also speaks to cultural dynamics, right? Understanding the cultural dynamics of different spaces and places. Because what works in South Africa might not work, for instance, if you're trying to center your business, say, in Asia, where there's cultural nuances there that need to be understood and navigated.
True. I think it goes down, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's China, in terms of how business cards are basically exchanged. There's a certain point, or you can't actually take a business card and put it in your pocket. I can't remember the exact nuance around it, but it comes to that. So going into any other country or culture, you need to kind of understand how they operate so that you can obviously step on their foot in terms of when you get there and you're obviously looking for business and so forth. It plays a big role.
Yeah.
We need to always ensure that, especially as entrepreneurs, that you do your homework, you do your research, going into any other space, whether it's from a business proposal perspective or going in to see a client. You need to always make sure that you're on your A game and you know the client in terms of what you're going to be dealing with here.
I was about to ask, Guti, how much of that speaks also to, you going into certain environments and being adaptable in what you're presenting and who you're presenting to at any given space, because a presentation to an SAFM might be different to a presentation to a Discovery, for instance, even if you're selling the same offering and same service, but it needs to be positioned in a way that speaks to a particular organization or brand.
Correct. I think from my side, my organization, what we do a lot is we customize everything. Whether we're going into this bank and the other bank, the presentations are never the same. Each environment has its own culture. It has its own processes and how they obviously look at business in essence, as well as their products. Their product positioning is always different. You take a simple franchise, I don't know, KFC and Nando's, they do the same thing, but they do it completely different. So how you go in and present to those two institutions becomes a very big dynamic in terms of how do you then ensure that you are customized or you've customized your presentation accordingly. We do that a lot. I think it's quite key. It's very important, and we need to also understand as business people that, you know what, if you're not going to put in the effort to customize your presentation to the client's needs, or even from a CI perspective, just use some of their colors, their logos, etc. and the likes, instead of just taking anything generic and giving it to them. It shows that whatever that you're asking from them, it's really not that valuable or important to you.
Absolutely. I mean, we went straight to delved into, the culture of entrepreneurship without even getting to the crux of the matter, as asked in the title of the book. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody, so is it for you? So who is an entrepreneur? How do you know if you're an entrepreneur?
Hey, this one, I think a lot of people have different views around it. For me, you are born with it. You might not obviously realize it from
I already
day
know
one.
one person's going to argue with you on that. Laduma of Maklos.
So I think for me, it's definitely, it comes from that. And I'm not sure what his view is, but everything still comes down to you are born with certain traits, with certain qualities. And if you don't realize, Russell Simmons, as you mentioned, I can't remember the other chap from the US as well. He basically said, you know what, everybody has a gift. Your gift is something that you might not even see it yourself. I think it was Steve Harvey. You can't see your own gift at times. Everything comes in different ways and so forth. Yes, there's other people that see it quite early on in terms of how they obviously approach it. But sometimes when things happen as if it's a mistake, it's actually not a mistake. It's actually your destiny. It was meant to actually hit you in that aspect, whether you're in fashion. And yes, I'm not negating what he said. But obviously, it might be something that comes natural to you.
Yeah.
A person who's more analytical in nature versus somebody who's more artistic in nature, you were born with it. How do you then proceed from there? For me, it's born. Doesn't mean that you can't learn. You definitely can learn from that. But it makes it very difficult, especially when you don't have the right passion and the right drive, as well as ambition in terms of how do you want to now push in the space and move on from there. But if it's something that you really want to do, you can go to school and study. But for me, I think you're more born with it. And hey, it might just be a calling for you to go to school to study this because you might not have actually realized it at an earlier age and so forth.
You know, as we have this conversation, and I'm now wondering, what becomes the distinguisher between being a business person and being an entrepreneur?
I love that, yeah. There's a few descriptions in terms of how you obviously approach it, right? For me, being a business person, you can go and do some business studies and so forth. You'll end up in business. Whether you are an executive, a CEO, etc., and the likes, you can be a CEO of any company.
Yeah.
But if you're not a founder, I think that's where the difference comes in for me. If you're not a founder of something and you've actually had to have sleepless nights, blood, sweat, and tears, ensuring that you basically pick up this institution that you're trying to build from the ground up. A CEO can resign today and move to another organization. With this, it's your own baby, right? And you obviously need to move in that direction. Foster Tembegwa has a nice analogy as well in terms of how you obviously approach it. And he basically breaks it down in terms of levels. You're either self-employed, where you obviously do things yourself, etc., and the likes. You might have a small team and so forth. You're a professional. If you're a professional, you're more of an accountant, a doctor, and the likes. At the end of the day, you are still kind of required to provide that service to a certain degree. And I think from his explanation, once you have structures and processes in place where you don't actually have to be in the business and the business can run itself, that's where you can now call yourself a level of entrepreneur in essence. It's nuanced, in as much as I agree with that as well, but there's multiple nuances around it. But I think for me, once you have founded something and you started a whole business from scratch, I think that's what defines an entrepreneur for me.
Yeah. So you identify as a serial entrepreneur, and you in different spaces. Walk us through a little bit of your journey. And I think there's a lot to be said also, right, about the essence of failure. And we had Vusi at the beginning of the year. And we were chatting to him and we touched on this point as well about just learning in the failing, which is often the thing that we don't really unpack and we don't really talk about. Because people see your successes. Successes are very public. They speak for themselves. And failures become those intimate conversations in private rooms. But that's where the lessons are for those who are listening to you today.
I've failed a lot.
Show me an entrepreneur who has not.
So I think I've failed a lot, and a lot of people don't realize that, yes, you obviously have to learn from your failures. I think for me, if there's one story, there's multiple stories, but if there's one story that kind of contributed to how we do business today, we had a project a while back, 2018 or so, and at the time, not everything was going according to plan. We were still trying to build the structures in terms of making sure that things can move by themselves. We hire a lot of software engineers on our side, and with that comes different skill sets, different people having to basically operate in that space. And if you don't have the right project managers, the right business analysts to also contribute to those projects, it becomes a very tough game to play, in essence, where you are now having to coordinate everything yourself. I close to went to depression, in essence. I was quite stressed to a point where I had to go into an ear institute at the time because one of my ears was actually blocked, and I was like, what's going on? And they basically just said, no, it's stress.
Wow.
And at the time, we had a massive project, a few million rands at the time, and we lost it. It was a game changer. It was going to be a game changer for us. But what I learned from that in terms of what happened throughout that entire journey was that, you know what, we won't repeat these mistakes again. Whoever we're going to service tomorrow, we need to make sure that all the checks and balances are in place so that we don't repeat these mistakes. So we have to learn from those. But I guess it comes down to, you need to just find yourself in a space where you are able to comprehend. You make a mistake and you learn. There's going to be problems that occur along the way as well. And when those happen, don't think that they're happening against you. They're actually happening for you. They're going to prepare you for tomorrow. There'll be bigger issues that you're going to have to deal with, similar but in a bigger magnitude, and you have to be ready for that. So everything that happens for a reason, and that's how I actually live my life as well, even from a business perspective. Move into that space and understand that, you know what, we're going to do this, and either way, whether you don't go into anything with the idea that you're going to fail. I'm never going to fail. You're going to move forward. Even in that failure, it was not a failure, it was a learning.
Yeah.
And you move from there.
Well, what's that old adage? Fail fast and fail forward.
Correct.
That's where the learning is at. By the way, we didn't even get into Rockfest and the work that you guys do as the CEO. Dope name, but I get the feeling it's got nothing to do with the entertainment industry.
Not really. So I think on my side, I am a bit in the entertainment space a bit. However, from a Rockfest perspective, it's a holding company. We have what we call Rockfest Systems, which is the management consulting as well as software engineering company. So within that space, we service a lot of companies from a professional perspective. Big companies trying to transform, digital transformation. You might have audits, etc., and governance, risk, and compliance comes into that space. And then obviously the standard software engineering, where we build applications and so forth. I think that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do in that space from a Rockfest Systems perspective. We then have what we call Rockfest C3. C3 is basically consultants, civils, as well as, I forgot what the other acronym is of my own business, and construction.
Yeah.
So within that space, it's more the construction space where we do a lot of civil work, as well as construction. We build units and so forth within that space. And it's basically purely construction. The other one is Rockfest Properties, where we basically own a few properties in that space, and it obviously works close hand in hand with Rockfest C3 in that regard, but it's a completely different entity. Everyone always asks me, how do you juggle these two things? They're completely different, right?
Yeah.
But I think it comes from a mindset perspective, and hence I said earlier on, some of these things you're born with. On my side, you look at me and I have a creative eye, but I'm also analytical at the same time as well. So a lot of things kind of chop and change. Like I said, now I'm in the music space as well to a certain degree. I have a business partner where we have a whole application that we've built in that space for promoters as well as music artists from a bookings perspective. It's doing quite well, and we're obviously pushing that as well, coming from all the way back then in school where I used to obviously rap and so forth. We had our own record label, obviously transitioned out of that, going into the IT at the time completely. But I'm able to obviously navigate all of these, but I can't do it alone. I need a team.
Yeah.
Everyone that's around us, every employee that we have basically plays a massive role in terms of what we do. And we obviously try and make sure that when we hire the right people at the right time. We make mistakes. It is the nature of the game. and we obviously deal with different personalities and so forth. So these are areas and challenges that you obviously have to navigate, and things that I write about in the book as well.
Yeah. Speaking of the book, in our last minute, so entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Is it for you? When is it out? And just a brief highlight. I mean, I get the gist. It speaks to the essence of everything we spoke about today, but just a brief highlight of some of the chapters contained.
Yeah, so I think maybe let me start with the reason behind the book, right? And how it's obviously written. It's written for two people, or two types of audiences in essence. It's written for the person that's already in business. You are struggling. You are finding it very difficult to actually navigate certain spaces, etc. You are under stress. A lot of your clients are not paying you, etc. and so forth. You are now in a space where, do I quit or do I continue? And it comes down to, I'm trying to show everyone that, you know what, in business, they come with the territory. You are going to struggle. You are going to have challenges. It's not new. It's not happening just for you. It's happening for every other entrepreneur. And if you are in that space and you really believe in what you do, keep pushing. Push up until you basically get everything right. But don't also be shy to basically adjust yourself. The strategy of how you might have started versus how you are running, completely two different things. There's this whole analogy around, your business plan can never be in a space where it helps you, but you have to understand how you then basically morph from that.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had more time to delve into the book, but I think we did a good job in introducing people to Lerato as the entrepreneur and the vision behind him. And so if you're already in the business space, definitely get yourself a copy of Entrepreneurship is Not for Everyone. It is for you. It's in bookshelves.
It will be at Exclusive Books. Take a lot as well. It is coming out this month.
Okay.
And obviously you can already pre-order on our website, leratobodibo.com.
Lovely.
And you'll find it there.
Fabulous. That is where we leave it today. Ashraf is coming through. The show will be in Durban tomorrow for the Africa Travel Indaba alongside Kathy. We're going back to back in my home city. It's 3 o'clock on the dot. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 3 unions concerned over unemployment rate figures, and Omotoso released after court appearance. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. Unions have expressed concern after South Africa's unemployment rate increased by